My topic today is actually EU's diplomatic and security role in the Asia Pacific. Is it a US follower or a neutral security partner? Thank you. And I would touch upon four aspects actually. First of all, I will start from the regional order in this region. Then second of all, the general perceptions of the European Union in the Asia Pacific, particularly in East Asian countries. And the third part would be EU's foreign and security policy in practice, what it has been doing and what kind of contributions it has been making to peace and security in this region. And the last part will be a certain, or my evaluation of the prospect for the EU to play a neutral security partner for the countries in this region. Okay, first of all, I would start from the evolving order here in the Asia Pacific. When we talk about the Asia Pacific, the first thing that would come into mind of many people in the Asia, particularly in East Asia and Asian countries, is China's rise, and particularly in recent years, the heightened tension between US and China in this particular region. And in coping with China's rise, there are actually two sets of networks. They could be overlapping or intertwined, but generally speaking, there is, first of all, the US Bilateral Security Alliance Network, which was established after the Second World War, but it was revived and strengthened ever since Obama's rebalance to the Asia Pacific, then Donald Trump's Indo-Pacific strategy in the region. Yes, I put it here. And actually in this bilateral alliance, besides this bilateral alliance network, there's also other security partnerships established between US and other countries in the region, particularly like Vietnam, which is a former foe and enemy of the US, but then the Obama administration tried to establish a quasi like a military alliance and security partnership with that country. Okay. And this circle, of course, and US bilateral system is generally perceived to be targeted at China or even a containment of China's rise. Then about the ASEAN, and the second relational network particularly would be the ASEAN-centered multilateral networks. ASEAN as a short term, is short actually for Association of Southeast Asian Nations. It comprises of 10 states in Southeast Asia, and around this regional organization has constructed many multilateral platforms or mechanisms to promote regional integration and multilateral cooperation, not only in economic terms, but also on many soft security issues. Then if we see these two networks, we'll be wondering, where is the European Union? Okay, does it actually play a role? Perception studies in the past decade or so have shown that usually most Asian countries perceive EU to be generally an economic actor or trade giant. But in terms of foreign policy in general or security, it's like a free rider or US follower echoing US interests. As in the 1990s, a European scholar himself described EU-Asia relations as tyranny of distance and primacy of trade. That's the particular feature of EU relation with Asia, including Australasia, so it would be like a wider Asia-Pacific region as economic, okay? Then that US follower perception comes mainly from its security reliance on the US, and also in 2012, that perception was particularly strong because when the EU High Representative Ashton attended ASEAN Regional Forum for the first time, he issued a joint statement with the US Secretary of State on Asia Pacific, saying that US and EU would closely coordinate their policy in the Asia-Pacific region, as they share common values and common interests. After that, actually, that statement was criticized, not only by many people in Asia and Pacific, but also many European scholars, saying that the EU should remain or play its own like a neutral role. So later, in 2013 actually, sorry it's not in the PowerPoint, in 2013 when Ashton attended another security forum in Asia Pacific, we call it Shangri-La Dialogue, Ashton stated that EU is not an Asian power like the United States, but an Asian partner, trying to say that EU is like a security enabler to enable countries in this region or its partners in this region to be able to pursue multilateral security cooperation, to enable them to pursue peace and security in this region. That's her statement in 2013. And in 2018, actually, the Council conclusion mentioned that the EU Council conclusion entitled Enhanced EU Security and Cooperation in and with Asia, saying that EU is not only its economic trade giant, but also a security partner and security actor in its own right. So starting from 2013, when it starts to emphasize its partner role, or security partner or security enabler in the Asia-Pacific, what has actually happened then with its real policy and its policy practice there? Is it possible to, or for the EU, has it been playing a role in security terms? And is it possible to play a bigger role as a security partner, especially a neutral security partner in this region? Okay, so then I would first talk a little bit about its policy papers, how it states its policy in the Asia-Pacific or in Asia. It had its first policy paper in Asia in 1994, but it was mostly economically driven as it sets its overall goal to increase EU's economic presence in Asia. Okay, then that policy paper was updated in 2001, trying to include the political presence perspective in the policy paper and set its overall goal as to promote peace and stability in this region, as it is essential for the EU's economy and trade interests. Okay, then I've talked about this part. Then I would look at the real contributions. What has the European Union been doing in the 21st century, especially in the past like 15 years or so? Has it contributed to the development and security in the region? The EU has actually basically made use of 4 foreign policy tools to promote the EU's term of comprehensive security. The first tool would be development aid, which the EU is quite famous for, and as they believe there's a link between development and security. Development would promote security, of course, and this would help eradicate poverty and help address root causes of instability and insecurity in this region. The second foreign policy tool they made use of is humanitarian assistance in the Asia-Pacific. The EU has actually been present in the Asia-Pacific since 1990s in terms of humanitarian assistance for both man-made and natural disasters. The European Union has always been there, ready to help, to benefit large number of refugees and migrants in not just in Southeast Asia, but also in South Asia and in Asia-Pacific in general. And the third foreign policy tool is quite surprisingly common security and defense policy. The EU had been very successful in brokering a ceasefire deal and monitoring the implementation of that ceasefire deal in ASEC Indonesia, where there has long been ethnic conflicts in that region of Indonesia. And this case has been cited in many like analysis of EU foreign policies, saying it can actually successfully use its common security and defense policy, even it's a consensus-based like foreign policy tool. Okay. Then the fourth foreign policy tool used in the Asia Pacific would be the instrument contributing to stability and peace. This instrument has been used to usually to like address issues of radicalism, issues of like youth education, and demining projects in many Asian countries as well. Its purpose is for crisis prevention and crisis management, which the European Union is known for as a civilian power in foreign policy. As we can see, while does the EU contribute to security and like development in the region? Certainly it does. But usually it's mostly on soft security issues. The only exception is the common security and defense policy in ASEAN Indonesia, where there are ethnic conflicts and has been successfully solved with the European Union's help, of course. But as a civilian power, it's not like the US, who has massive military presence in the region. That's why people generally, without interrogating or investigating into what the EU has been doing there, would perceive it to be a US follower, as they both belong to, in the Asian terms, the Western camp. Okay. But if we investigate further in its foreign policy practice in the region, we can see certain features there. The European Union has been very much focused on promoting regional integration and regional approach to foreign and security issues, and in the whole process emphasizing ASEAN centrality in the process. And the EU actually regards ASEAN as the most successful regional organization among developing countries. So it has actually set its policy priorities in like policy papers on Asia, that cooperative regional orders and ASEAN centrality in the regional structure has always been among its policy priorities towards Asia Pacific. And in recent years, actually, the European Union has doubled its development aid allocated for ASEAN and regional integration promotion programs in the region, not just between ASEAN actually. It's ASEAN-centered regional integration, because ASEAN has signed FTAs, free trade agreements, with not only within itself, but also with many of its dialogue partners, like China, Japan, Korea, and other countries, and is also pushing together with China for a RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And particularly, in terms of regional approach, the EU has been organizing and hosting many capacity building programs for ASEAN, and ARF, that's the ASEAN Regional Forum, which focuses on multilateral security cooperation in the region, in the Asia Pacific as a whole. And the topic of the capacity building, or the theme of them, are usually like preventive diplomacy and maritime governance, as there are certain disputes in the South China Sea. I think what the European Union has been doing is support for ASEAN and ASEAN-centered network actually help enhance the legitimacy and the role of ASEAN-centered network in the region to promote regional development, not just in economic terms, but also the security and stability in that region as a whole. Then, how about, as it proclaimed, it wants to be a security partner for countries in the region, and sometimes some officials of the European Union has been stating that EU should play it's like a neutral partner in the region. In that case, it would mean it tried to play a balanced role between US and China. It's actually in EU's strategic interest of keeping the competitive relations between China and US on an even keel, like to reduce the tensions between them so that it can still guarantee its economic and trade interests in the region, and in the meantime, the EU can play a greater role in the Asia-Pacific and globally, of course. Then in recent years, when the US is heightening it's trying to strengthen its strategy of Indo-Pacific or rebalance to the Asia-Pacific, I think both of the strategies have tried to, or focused more, a lot more on military content instead of economic cooperation in the region than the European Union would. But in contrast, the European Union's approach is actually more open to China. Because first of all, China is an active participant and a supporter of the ASEAN-centered network in promoting regional integration. And second of all, the EU actually, many of its member countries have signed cooperation documents on Belt and Road Initiative, and then 14 of its member countries are actually founding members of the Asia Infrastructure Investment Bank, which has been rejected in the first place by the US because it said it's first initiated by China. But European Union thinks if there's a need for infrastructure investment, there's a gap for that, then these countries should actually join it. Okay, and in the meantime, the European Union have been organizing and hosting events with ASEAN, but also organizing joint workshops and organizing like EU-China Blue Year on maritime security and management of marine resources. And quite surprisingly to many people, last year in 2018, actually EU and China first time held a joint military exercise. And also this year, China and Germany held a military exercise, of course, for like medical responses to crisis, not like taking or attacking any island and anything anyway. But it's a way to showcase that EU is trying to broaden its cooperation with China on the basis of equality and try to promote mutual trust, try to promote like a peaceful solution to the to the problems in the region, and also through its support for ASEAN, that's multilateral security norms could be better possibly promoted in the region. Then, yes. I would go to my last part here. Generally, the EU is not like the US, which has massive military power. Nowadays, when there's heightened US-China competition, there's actually a greater need for the EU to play a more important role and also a neutral role. Because if it simply allies itself with the US in the region, it would further heighten the tension instead of reduce the tension there. And there are certain bases for it to play a bigger role because a recent survey has found that most, like the major powers, major countries in this region have generally positive view and expectations of European Union. On the question of how desirable is it that the EU takes a stronger leadership in world affairs, and the answers for very and somewhat desirable, the percentage point that's India's 67%, China more than 55, almost 56%, and ROK that's 48%. That would be like neutral, and Japan is like 37, and even the US. In the US, they are like over half of them support. But certainly, I think there is an issue of burden reduction on the US part. But for other Asian countries or countries in the Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific, at least they expect or they think quite favorably of a greater leadership role by the European Union in world affairs. Of course, that would also include in the Asia-Pacific region. Then from the European perspective, like President Macron once stated in his speech, they should create a European army. The EU has made increased efforts to add strategic autonomy. That means they have started to enhance cooperation in defense sector, starting from the defense industries right now. And there is a possibility for it to have a greater autonomy or like a greater military projection power, okay? Then with greater power, this also helps the EU to be a more coherent actor in world affairs. So I think there is a prospect for the European Union to play a bigger role, but the tricky challenge for it would be how to play that role in a neutral manner, because only being neutral can it help EU to increase its own role, not following the leadership of the United States. Okay, that will be all for my presentation. Thank you.